Jenna Parker is an American actress, writer, and former professional triathlete. Born in Concord, Massachusetts, Jenna is a triple threat: athletic, intelligent, with a broad emotional range. She offers a versatility and a grounded honesty in her acting work. Jenna, welcome to the Games and Writers Show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I do want to point out, too, that the introduction I just read is not mere platitudes. You attended Harvard University, earned a degree in psychology. You're also a member of the U.S. national team and represented the U.S. at the 2012 Olympic trial. So perhaps it would be easier to ask what you don't do. So is there something, a goal, something you have your eye on that you haven't yet accomplished?
I mean, I don't have any little gold figurines by the name of Emmys and Oscars yet, so that's on my bucket list.
There you go.
There are things in my life that I want to accomplish, and I've obviously spent a lot of my life in the athletic world. And I'd hoped to represent the U.S. at the Olympics and win a gold medal and all of that. I don't think any athlete ever signs up for that life if they don't aspire to be the best in the world.
Yeah.
But I also have another creative side to myself, and that's kind of the world that I'm moving towards now. Although I did just run the Boston Marathon last Monday, so there's a little bit of marathon running, and yeah. I wish I could say that I can just go and enjoy running 26 miles. But again, it's maybe I can qualify for Olympic trials, or let's see how fast I can do this. So I don't know, my DNA, I'm just not wired to do things halfway, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit of a competitive drive there, I guess.
With myself, though, not necessarily with anyone else.
Sure.
And I don't know if that's better or worse.
Yeah, I don't know. When you compete against yourself, sometimes I feel like that's a losing proposition, because I tend to do that, not in athletics, because I am not athletic at all. So I always admire people who are, but just in other things that I try to do, I do kind of do the same thing, compete against myself, and I keep moving the goalposts on myself, and so yeah. I'm never quite getting there.
Yeah,
right, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But speaking of athletics, when did you leave athletics to pursue acting?
It was a decision that I toyed with for a number of years, because when I was 7, I told my mom I was going to be the first person to win an Oscar and win a gold medal. So it was not like the acting move came out of the blue. That had always sort of been in the back of my mind. And I had sort of dabbled in acting stuff along the way, and I eventually had a great season in 2013. I'd worked with the coach that I thought was the best triathlon coach in the world, and I won the New York City Triathlon. And I just kind of felt like I didn't have anything left to prove to myself anymore. And I wanted to leave in a place where people weren't like, man, she should have retired 5 years ago. She's
right.
I wanted to kind of leave and have everyone be like, wait, she was racing really well. Why did she walk away?
Right.
So that was sort of the end of the 2013 season, which happened to be basically 10 years of racing. I pretty much called it quits.
Yeah, no, I think that's smart. Barry Sanders, I'm a lifelong Lions fan. But, Barry Sanders, when he retired at the top of his game, people thought, what are you doing? But, it turned out well for him. But it must have been a difficult transition, though, going from one to the other. How did you cope with that?
It's actually interesting that you asked me that question. That's what my life is actually being spent working on right now. Mm-hmm. It was not easy. Even knowing what I wanted to do next, I went through a really difficult period. I actually went through a lot of depression. I felt guilty. I had anxiety and panic attacks. It was really hard because you're basically grieving a loss. It's a part of yourself is dying. And there's this sense that if I walk away from sport, no one's going to care about me anymore. And I don't have any value and any worth, because sport had derived all of I was getting paid, right? I was getting paid to be an athlete. So it was a very difficult transition. I think knowing what I wanted to do next made it a little bit easier. But then again, it's not like you just show up in Hollywood and people are like, oh yeah, we're going to put you in our movie. Like Steven Spielberg wasn't like, hey, Jenna, I've been waiting for you.
Right.
So it was trying to figure out how to take all of the skills and, understanding, like, to be an athlete, you train day in and day out. So how do you shift that? And as an actor, what do you do day in and day out to prepare yourself and to basically train as an actor the way an athlete would, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
So I started going to different classes and trying to find people in the industry that would be mentors to me. Tried to start developing relationships with casting directors. It's a slow process. Like, you want it to happen really quickly, but it doesn't. And there's a lot of rejection along the way. And fortunately, I think being an athlete and being used to falling on my face and having to get back up again, I don't ever take that rejection personally. So it made it a little bit easier to deal with going into audition after audition and being told, you're great, but we're going another direction. And, it still happens all the time, but you have to sort of have faith that the right roles will come and that there's a reason why you're not being chosen for certain things. And it could simply be like, you're too tall or you're too blonde, or it's like stuff that's just not in your control.
Right.
You could be the best actress, but if the lead actor is 5'4", they're not going to cast a 5'7". Like, there's a lot of stupid stuff that goes into it. So just trying to enjoy that journey and to allow myself to expand the creative part of myself, because an athlete, you're living very much in the masculine. Like, we all have masculine and feminine in us. And the athletic side of me is like the very masculine, straight line, like goals. But the feminine side of me is the creativity and sort of the fluidity. And so sort of shifting myself to accept and allow that part of myself to come out was a big part of the process as well.
Oh, awesome. So let's talk about that creativity a little bit in terms of your writing. So you're the writer and creator of Identity, the docuseries. Could you tell us how that came about and a little bit about it?
So like I said, that transition that I went through, leaving sport, I kept thinking to myself, who am I if I'm not an athlete? And then when I moved into the acting world, I kept being told, write what you know. And I'm sitting there, what do I know? I don't know anything. Like, what is it about me and my journey? Like, what makes me special? And I went for a run one day and I just running along, and I actually do a lot of writing while I run, which people think is funny, but like, I just write screenplays in my head. And I just had this idea, and it was the story of this female athlete, and she was struggling with depression and addiction. And it was basically bringing this journey that I'd gone through to life in a theatrical way. And I came back and I pitched it to my best friend, and he was like, I think that is what you know, and I think you're exactly right, but I think you should do a documentary first. And so then I was like, cool, that's great. I have no idea how to make a documentary. I didn't go to film school. I don't even know where to start. So I started reaching out to some people that had made different films, different documentaries. Andrew Morgan, who made The True Cost, which is about the fashion world. And he went over to India and looked at like fashion and what the cost of that is to the people that are working over there. So he'd done a lot of amazing documentaries. And I sat with him and I said, this is my idea. And this is what I want to do. And he was like, you've got all the pieces. This is what you need to do first. And I sort of kept going back to him stage by stage. And he wasn't in a place where he could like really help me, except obviously like all of his knowledge was extremely helpful. So that started honestly like 3 years ago, maybe longer at this point. And I just started diving into the sports world, and I was shocked that I could basically write any sport followed by athlete, depression, and a list of names would come up. And the same thing for addiction, the same thing for suicide. And I was like, oh my God, this is so much bigger than anything anybody realizes, because you hear about it in fits and spurts. Like most people have heard about Michael Phelps's struggle. And, you know, now more athletes are coming out. But the through line that I recognized that I had felt was identity, and was this loss of who you are. And this idea of when what you do is who you are. And like, we live in an achievement-based culture, and that makes it very difficult to separate how you see yourself and your self-worth and your value, because society is valuing you for that. So, it's grown now from a 90-minute documentary to something that we're trying to get off the ground that will hopefully be at least a 13-part series, sort of following a bunch of different athletes at a bunch of different stages of their careers, and looking at the science behind it, working with neurologists and sports psychs to really sort of even go back to what is the id, what is the ego, where does our sense of identity come from? And the reality is that the issue of identity and of brain health is something that I think is rampant across every part of society, but sports is a great lens with which to start the conversation.
You know, I think that's incredible that, a lot of people allow that transition or their retirement after sports. Like you were saying, now what do I do with myself? Let that destroy them. But you've managed to turn it into something creative and positive, and not just creative and positive, but something that could actually help other people dealing with those same issues. So I think that's amazing. So you're also the founder of 918 Pictures. Could you tell us about that?
So, I've always wanted to do meaningful storytelling, and the idea behind the production company, I always wanted to have my own production company. And obviously now that I have this project, it sort of is all happening a lot faster. But just this idea that I want to create stories, whether they be documentaries or theatrical films, that really are challenging the way that people see things and the way that their perspective is on different things. I think a lot of people don't recognize the power of film and TV, and the fact that unlike a situation where someone's sitting there lecturing you about something and they're telling you, you need to think this, you need to think that. When you sit back and watch a TV show, if they're talking about a sensitive subject, you're allowed to sort of experience it through the characters that are going through it. And in that way, you're allowed to see the issue from different sides and perhaps see a perspective in a way that you wouldn't otherwise. And so for me, being an actor was never about I want to be famous, and, obviously getting accolades for it is wonderful. But really, I see it as an opportunity to tell these stories that in a lot of ways can unite people, and that can open up people's minds to seeing things in a way that they may not have thought about it before. And I think that really should be the power in the storytelling that's going on. And unfortunately, right now, because of where the money is coming from and how things are being funded, you're seeing more and more of our media being driven by outside financing, and being these I always joke and say it's like Superman 65. It's these series which have entertainment value, right? And we all enjoy them. I love Marvel stuff. I wish that they'd cast me in Marvel stuff. It would have been a great cast in Marvel. There's nothing wrong with it, but we've lost a lot of the real character-driven, message-driven films. And I think we really need to go back to that. I think that's why you see stories that are hitting so hard. I can't think of the name of it. Oh my God. The one, that show with where they wear the outfit. Oh God. Handmaid's Tale. Thank you. Okay. Handmaid's Tale. It just came out at such a perfect time. And they'd been trying to get it to come out for years and it hadn't stuck. And it came out when it needed to come out. And it came out at a time when our society was in a place where like you watched that and you went, oh my God, like this is crazy, but something like this actually could happen.
Yeah.
So in a way, it made that even more powerful than it would have if it had come out 10 years earlier. So for me, like 918 Pictures, and my hope down the line is that this docuseries is the beginning of my opportunity to continue to create films and whether they're short form or long form or whatever category they're in, where we're addressing issues and topics and allowing people to see these different sides and to make up their own mind about things, but to give them more information and to give them more perspectives to look at things from.
Awesome. That is fantastic. We're running short on time now, but I do say you did promise us a crazy dating story. Do you have one of those?
God. Yeah. This one's from a while back, but I had like the Prince of like Dubai, or I don't want to get this wrong. So if the Prince of Dubai is watching, I'm sorry if it wasn't you, but he reached out to me on LinkedIn. I basically got headhunted and I told my friends about it and they're like, you have to go on a date with him. Like you have to do this. It'll be so interesting. So I did. And I showed up in Beverly Hills and he took me to, one of those cliche bougie places. And the whole time he spent trying to explain to me what my life was going to be like when we got married. And he's like, I have Obama's phone number. Like I can pick up the phone and call him right now. And I was like, I really don't need you to call him. Not okay. Yeah. And so we spent the whole time, it made me so uncomfortable. He was telling me where I'd live and like how our life would be. And this was a first date. And then going home, I had taken a Lyft there because I didn't want him to know where I lived. And so he's like, I'll drive you back. And so, of course, this like really cliche, like Mustang convertible comes out. It probably was something even bougier than that. We get in, the top's down, and the song, I Can't Feel My Face When I'm With You, that's, which I hate now. It comes on and he's like holding my hand and I'm like cringing. And he keeps at every stoplight, he's singing the song and he keeps like leaning over trying to kiss me. And I'm like pushing him away. I'm ready to get out and walk home in my heels. Like I can't take it. We get to where I live and I turn to him and I go, thank you so much for dinner. It was really nice to meet you. And I go to open the door to get out and he goes, that's it? And I go, yeah, that's it. Walked inside, bawled my eyes out, just started sobbing because I never felt more like a piece of meat in my life. And I told my friends, I was like, this one's for you, but like never again. Well, I mean, he was telling me about the horses that he flies on planes to places to ride them for his birthday in his gold-plated Lamborghinis. And I'm sitting there going like, does this work? Like, I guess there are girls that would be impressed by this, but like, I just want to throw up.
Well, I feel for women because I'm not a big fan of my gender, to be honest with you. So
You're not all bad. You're not all bad. No.
All right. Well, Jenna Parker, thanks so much for joining us on the Games and Writers Show. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, and I'm happy to come back anytime.
Absolutely.
More fun stories for you.
Yeah, and if you have anything new that you want to come up and talk about, send me an email, and you're always welcome. So,
Great. Thank
you and yours. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye.